Welcome to the AI Cookbook Podcast and the AI Weekly. I'm Jeff Hassemer.
And I'm Nate.
All right, Nate, you ready to jump in?
Heck yeah.
Okay, so Google had a big week. They announced a whole bunch of things, over 100 plus announcements across AI, search, Android, and developer tools. Gemini Spark is their new agentic routines, and it's going to absolutely change everybody how it works, or how people work with Google information. Search agents are running 24/7 in the background. I think the big thing I saw here is the universal cart working across merchants and services. This is a big splash by Google, really big splash. They had been falling, I think, a little bit behind with where Claude was, but there was a lot announced this week.
Still digging through it, and just the stuff I've been playing with is amazing. Just amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I've got to dig back in. Like, I'm still digging through a lot of this stuff too, but I'm really looking forward to playing with Gemini Omni on the video side. Want to get into playing with some Flash as well, and because we have Ultra, you can jump into Flash. But I think the biggest part of this is there's been a massive shift in search too. Yeah. So the thing I think people are missing with all these AI announcements is SEO is definitely taking the shift to GEO after this, and Google led it throughout this. So if you're not thinking GEO today, you have got to get this done. Yeah. Like, it just has to happen. Okay. Well, the next bit of news is kind of along the same line here. OpenAI is eyeing the public markets. I haven't been quiet about how I feel about this. I think that, they're targeting a September 2026. They're saying that there's a confidential S1 filing that's coming and is imminent. But there's also the SpaceX IPO and the Anthropic IPO, and I just don't think there's enough money to cover all this.
Yeah, I need to dig up the stats. It was just a couple days ago on this. I think it was from SaaStr, some of the guys there, but it was fascinating because just among these big IPOs said, this is it. If everybody dives in on these, there's no money for anything else. And that might be how it happens. There might be 3 IPOs this year. It's just really interesting to see how much this is settled at the top, right?
Yeah, but I also think that there's a major piece that isn't necessarily getting talked about, and that is we are strained at the top by compute capacity. Yep. And so somebody's lying here, right? Like, somebody is not going to be able to meet this demand once this is going. Like, I don't know. I'm just hearkening back. I have this pit in my stomach. This is not investment advice or anything like that, but it feels like the bubble, right? Yeah. One, there has to be a sacrificial lamb. The rest will get picked up by other players. But, I don't know. Between Google, Anthropic, and OpenAI, if I was going to pick the sacrificial lamb right now, it's OpenAI, because they're trailing behind on almost everything.
Yep.
Which leads us to our next slide. They're trailing behind Anthropic. Anthropic, the big news, first ever operating quarterly profit. But this quarter over quarter growth, the revenue growth is unbelievable. Then they signed the deal with SpaceX to take over Colossus, which made a lot of sense because XAI was only using like 10% of the capacity in that data center. Now it's going to be fully packed with information. And I think, quite honestly, XAI is going to start using a lot of what it learns out of this to do their thing too.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of I don't know how you would the subterfuge between the models that'll start happening here between these folks.
Yeah. I still say what I'm seeing in the patterns is XAI, SpaceX, all coming together, plus Tesla, all that kind of thing. Elon is focusing on physical AI.
Yeah.
He's focusing on automated vehicles. He's focusing on robots. He's focusing on data centers in space. And he's focusing on, mining in space. And I think with robots, right?
Yep.
So I think that X will win the physical AI game, where Google and Anthropic will duke it out for the uses, the use of the AI game. But this was, I think, again, I point to this and then the previous slide, and I don't know, there's got to be a sacrificial lamb here, I think.
Agreed. And none of us, I mean, just the speed that all this stuff happens. I also wonder if it's going to be the speed in the stock that happens with all of these companies as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see when this S1 comes out too, for sure. So the OpenAI lawsuit was rejected. So that's good news for OpenAI. It was pretty unanimous, and it took less than 2 hours. So sounds like there wasn't much to this claim that came forward, and OpenAI is now clear to file the IPO. Do you have any thoughts about what happened here?
No, I mean, it's all the superficial popcorn eating aspect of it. I still look at it as, I deserve $1 trillion from this. No, I deserve $1 trillion from this. So it's fun from us, from a spectator perspective, to watch this happen. When I talk to other people about this, I keep reminding them, like I've been reminding people for several years, study American history, the Gilded Age.
Yep.
I mean, we are all focusing on the Rockefellers here, right?
Yep.
And forgetting that even people who are vibe coding their way to several $1 million a year are still on the factory floor. Now, power to you if you're making a couple $1 million a year, but just the gulf of what's happening with the people who lead these frontier models and the rest of us is just astounding.
It's hard to fathom what $1 trillion means. It's hard to fathom what $1 billion means.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that we've become numb to that. But your point is well put. This is where a lot of money's being sucked to the top, and the rest of us are running around for scraps, even if that's $1 million a year.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Who knows, can we live off $1 million a year someday, but we'll see. I know I could right now.
Exactly.
That's all I need. All right. Finally, the Vatican sure addresses artificial intelligence. This is a historic first, right?
Yep.
So the Pope said something about artificial intelligence. I'll be honest, I didn't pay any attention to this. It is what it is, but this shows how mainstream it is, I guess, if the Vatican's talking about it.
Well, and it's mainstream, and this kind of dovetails with me for the backlash, right? And we see this in the U.S. and in first world economies, right? About the backlash that's starting to happen towards AI and the talking about AI and what AI is doing. All of a sudden, this to me kind of coordinates. Sorry, I have a cat climbing over my keyboard at the moment. But it all kind of comes together as the moral, ethical, and societal aspects of AI rushing at all of us. And I kept wondering for quite a while, like, when's this all going to hit? It seems like it's all hitting.
Yeah. To that point, I read an article either yesterday or earlier this morning where it was talking about the perception of AI, right? So in 2025, it was like 86% positive perception. That's down to 26% now.
Wow. I didn't realize it had fallen that much. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a rough year for AI. But I always say this feels exactly like the internet.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The negative things about it. Internet was going to kill everything, blah, 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 blah. And, we adapted, we overcame.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that there won't be hardship. I'm not saying that there won't be a lot of people affected by this at all. I think that's happening. But, we've been pretty consistent as a group saying you need to figure out what you're going to do as this is going on, because it probably isn't going to be in corporate anymore.
Yeah.
And you got to figure out how you're gonna approve this and get across the board and integrate this into your life. And then, maybe we're in the hustle culture where you're doing 4 or 5 things at once.
Yep.
Which I feel like that's what I'm doing these days.
That's exactly it. Yeah, I think that we see this when we lean into this. It's hustle culture for the foreseeable future, and then things will start to settle out. And will start to become apparent, like, oh, here's a new path. Here's a career. Don't know what it'll take, but you can definitely start to see glimmers of that now.
That's right. So I think next week will be interesting. We're going to learn a lot about a lot of things. You've got the Gemini rollout happening next week. So all the hype that happened, we're going to actually see how that actually plays out. Really excited to see some of the functions that they put out there, because Google does a really good job of integrating things into your workflow.
Yeah.
SpaceX is supposed to file IPO next week too. I think we're going to see a little bit more on the AI governance, and probably be talking about this kind of pushback on AI again as we go into the next week. So, man, the flow never stops in this game, does it?
It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Just amazing. You've been talking forever about how Google's just being quiet, and they stopped being quiet. You got to spend all weekend figuring out what it means.
Yeah, they tend to do this. Although I'm deeper and deeper into Claude every day. It's pretty wild. Yeah. All right, man. Well, good luck for everybody. Stay tuned, and we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jeff.
Yep. Bye.